Hello, everybody. Welcome into Go with the Flow, presented by RS Andrews. We're all kind of scattered across the globe here right now. I am in Fort Lauderdale, which is where the media headquarters is for the Orange Bowl. Mike Griffith is on hand there as well, but we're not in the same room together. We're on two different Zooms here, which is a very 2021 thing to have be true. Connor Riley holding down the fort, our Dog Nation World Headquarters studios. Jeff Sintel has been covering one of the All-Star games up in Orlando. I think he's en route down here with us in South Florida. Our buddy Dari Payro from RS Andrews probably joining us from some, ritzy locale as he globe hops and globe trots this time of year. But coming back after a little bit of a Christmas break and getting back to the business of picking football games as the bowl season rolls on, and really today and then throughout New Year's Eve, New Year's Day kind of kicks into full gear here. And I don't know that we've ever done a live edition of Go with the Flow presented by RS Andrews, but we're doing that here today. So we'll make Go with the Flow history today there as well. So I'm happy to have all of you and hope you all had a good Christmas. And I guess, Dari Payroll, let me begin with this before we explain our game and get into these picks. Do you feel like you can get any kind of handle whatsoever on how the bowls are going to play out? Now, maybe the college football playoff a little different here, but just given the huge number of absences, the fact that it's almost a betting market for will the game even be played. We've had 5 games at least impacted by cancellations. Do you feel like you can get a handle on these games at all right
now? Some of the games, yes, and some no. Some are pretty tricky, and some of them, even with some of you gotta go to that second and third tier of data sets. Really looking at, kind of how the public's betting, kind of how some of the money's moving behind the scenes, kind of gives me a better feel, a little more confidence in some of these games.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty smart way to go about that. And frankly, anything for me would be smarter than I was the last time we had our picks, which was conference championship week way back at the beginning of December. My pick's not very strong as well. Before we dive into this week's picks, Connor Riley still stands atop the season-long showdown here at 65 and 67. He finds himself on the year. Dari Payro now at 63 and 58. So knocking on the door with Connor right now is Dari. I fall down to third place though after a 3-8 campaign the last time we did this. Still winning on the season at 62 and 60. That ties me with Mike Griffith and Jeff Sintel. They're below that at 56 and 66 on the year. So certainly for me, a chance to get back to some winning ways here with our final week's worth of picks. And for Connor and Dari, clearly a pretty fun battle there at the top, and we'll follow that and we'll see how that plays out. For those of you who've been with us all season long, you know what we do here. For those of you who are, fresh and new to this show as we roll into bowl week, this show is called Go with the Flow, presented by RS Andrews. Here's the way it works. In just a moment, I will weigh in with my picks on the upcoming games. Dog Nation's Mike Griffith, Jeff Sintel, Connor Riley, they'll do the same thing. We'll invite Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers to be a part of the picks as they go down. After that takes place, a consensus is formed. And we asked Dari Payro from RS Andrews if he wants to go with the flow and join that consensus. Of course, we invite you to do the same thing as you play along at home as well. So that's the way it's all going to go. Big slate of games to pick. Obviously, college football playoff and all the bowl action as well. And let's begin with the game that matters, of course, most to our audience. Georgia, Michigan in the Orange Bowl tomorrow evening. Georgia has been a 7.5 point favorite, according to BetUS. That's where the pick remains right now. So, Mike, we'll let you tee things off to begin with. Georgia as a 7.5 point favorite against Michigan in the Orange Bowl. What do you think?
Well, we're not wasting any time. We're going right, not burying the lead there, going right after the Michigan-Georgia game. I was a little surprised you kind of buried the lead that I've caught up to you on our picks, Brandon, after you ridiculed me all year.
I don't think I ridiculed you. No. I operate by the rule as the Bear Chris Liga says: when you lose, say nothing. When you win, say less. I don't feel like I've done that to anybody.
People are going to find out why we've never done this show live today. I predict. I thought that I felt kind of vague about Georgia. The term I've used for Georgia football is internal bleeding. I think there's a lot of internal bleeding at Georgia right now, and yet. This Michigan
Not only is that depressing, that's also gross.
Well, it is, but it's just, they don't really let you talk to anybody. And on the front, everybody seems fine. But listen, that game was a kick in the gut. It was devastating to the fan base. I believe it was devastating to the players. And now it's just a matter of how do they respond. And I feel like Georgia's got a larger margin for error than Michigan because the amount of playmakers, because the options that Kirby Smart has available. And I'm going to take Georgia to win this game and cover, even though I think that they could get off to a slow start. And I think this game could get scary. And I certainly believe Michigan's capable of beating them. But because of the matchup and ultimately because Michigan safety Dax Hill hasn't been here, that is just a huge loss for Michigan, even if he shows up, that he hasn't been able to prepare with a team. And Brock Bowers is the one guy Stetson's going to lock in on, threw the ball at him 16 times. And if Michigan's missing the guy that would cover Brock Bowers, I think that's the winning edge and enough for me to take Georgia to cover the 7.5-point spread.
So Mike Griffith takes the Georgia Bulldogs here. Jeff Sintel, who's making his picks from the road, hands at 10-2, of course. What do you think about Georgia minus the 7.5 right now?
Yeah, guys. Hey, happy holidays, everybody. I think the term for me, Mike, is internal fortitude, not internal bleeding. I think this is a gut check game where Georgia realizes that they've got about maybe 35 future NFL players on this roster. I think only Michigan has maybe 15 to 20 future NFL players on this roster. I think Michigan will overcompensate for Brock Bowers, and it'll spring a guy like perhaps a James Cook or more likely a Darnell Washington to make plays. I like Georgia to win. I like Georgia to cover. I think about this game, I look at Michigan largely like the Kentucky game, the Auburn game, those type of games that Georgia's been through, the Arkansas game. Do I think that Georgia's 30 points better than those teams? No. Than Michigan, like those teams? No. But I think they're about a solid, 12 to 14 points better. Give me Georgia to cover and get some of that internal bleeding remedied, like Dr. House is treating it on New Year's Eve.
Number is 7.5. The pick is to Connor Riley.
Yeah, look, for those of you who've seen this show before, I'm about to tell you what's going to happen. The Dog Nation audience is going to pick Georgia. BA is going to pick Georgia. Daria is going to pick Georgia. And I'm going to do the emotional hedge once again. It worked for me against Alabama. It was proven right in that situation. I'm going to take Michigan here with the 7.5. If this was 6.5, I think about it a little bit more. I think this game is going to fall in that 6 to, say, 11-point range in terms of the final score. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. And because I know everyone else here is going to pick Georgia, I'm going to take the free game up and take Michigan here. And if I'm right once again. And if I'm wrong, it means Georgia should win rather comfortably.
Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers go against Connor Riley on that. As predicted, 84% do take the dogs here. And I'm going to take, and by dogs, I mean the DAWGS, not the underdogs, as it were. And I'm going to take UGA there as well. Listen, with my picks here this week, I'm going to try to be pretty simple and straightforward on this. People wonder, why is it that the rich always get richer? The reason why the rich always get richer is because they do the things that rich people do. Here's the things that rich people do. They understand that the thing that happened last is not necessarily the thing that matters most. We have a data set now in college football for 2021 that is 13 games large. Georgia's most recent data entry, not very good. Michigan's last couple, really, really good. But the story that determines who wins this game is told over the course of 13 games and multiple months, not a couple of games at the end of November, the beginning of December. The fact of the matter is, over the course of the entirety of this season, Georgia's been way better than Michigan because it has a larger collection of talented players. I'm quite confident in Georgia going into this game. I want to say on Saturday. I want to catch myself on that on Friday. I think this is actually a fairly easy game to predict. And whatever happened for Georgia against SEC champion Alabama and back in Atlanta in December, I think all that's ancient history as far as this particular game is going to be decided. I like Georgia. I like them to win by 9-10 points, something along those lines. Not a blowout, but an easy cover. I'll take the dogs here in this spot. And Dari, that puts the flow on the side of Georgia. You want to go with the flow and take Georgia?
I'm going to go with the flow. I'm going to take Georgia. I'm going to lay the points with Georgia. I get my tasty beverage here. Since, the goal for Georgia, even though it was to win the SEC championship, the ultimate goal was to get the college football playoffs. They've accomplished that. They're here. I think you put it behind last time in the SEC championship game. I think they're going to respond in a positive way in this game. It's going to be tough against a really good Michigan team. It's like a fist fight in a phone booth. But that's the type of matchup that favors Georgia in that style of game. I like the dogs to cover the points.
While we're on the subject of the college football playoff, live here on this edition of Go With The Flow presented by R.S. Andrews, let's also make our pick here for the other playoff semifinal game between Alabama and Cincinnati. Ironically, this game, the largest point spread of the bowl season, despite the fact that it's one of the national semifinal games here. Alabama sees itself as a 13.5-point favorite against the Cincinnati Bearcats. And of course, according to Alabama coach Nick Saban, they've been on lockdown and super focused. Nick Saban says the players haven't even left the hotel rooms. They've been in Dallas, which to me seems more like false imprisonment than game day preparation. But nonetheless, that's the story from Dallas. Alabama, big, 2-touchdown-ish favorite here against Cincinnati. What do you think about the Tide and the Bearcats with the Alabama giving 13.5? Mike Griffith, back to you.
Well, Brandon, if we were going to apply your theory that it matters what's happened all year long, then Alabama wouldn't be a 13.5-point favorite. But they're largely a 13.5-point favorite because they have gotten better as the season has progressed. This is not the same Alabama team that was outgained by more than 100 yards by Florida in the Swamp. It's also not the same Cincinnati team that we saw a year ago play against Georgia. They're full strength. They've got some DBs. When Alabama was held to 20 points by LSU, a fractured LSU team, I might add, it was because LSU came at them with an entirely different game plan that they hadn't seen all season long. I don't think that Cincinnati is going to scramble things that much. I do think this game will be contested throughout most of the action, but because of the explosive element of the Alabama offense and the Bearcats' propensity for giving up sacks to quality opponents, as we saw a year ago, I'm going to take Alabama. I'm going to take them to cover, and I'm going to take them because of what they did in the last game instead of the body of the 13 games.
Jeff Sintel, how about you? Number is 13.5. Can Cincinnati keep it close?
Yeah, I kind of think this game will be the more entertaining of the two national semifinals. Dari used the term, fist fight in a phone booth. I think Georgia-Michigan is going to look like a knife fight in the phone booth. But with this one, I think Cincinnati can keep it close. I think personnel can keep it close, especially all those future NFL guys on defense for the Bearcats. Probably more NFL-ready DBs than Georgia has in its program right now. I see this being a 14-point game, 20-point game in the end, but I think it stays close for the bulk of three quarters. I think an Alabama late touchdown will give Alabama the win and the cover here.
So earlier, Mike was talking about internal bleeding. Now Jeff's talking about knife fights and phone booths. This is clearly the most violent edition of Cover 4, I should say, of Go With The Flow live that we've ever had. The live edition bringing out some grotesque imagery here in the early going. But Jeff on the side of the Alabama Crimson Tide there as well. Connor Riley, what do you think about Bama and Cincy?
Life's not heroes and good guys. It's a knife fight in the street over a piece of paper. A little secession quote there for you. Okay, secession.
There you go. Very nice.
I think Mike really hit the nail on the head here with describing this game. I think Cincinnati's going to be able to keep it close, but Alabama's going to wear Cincinnati down over the course of four quarters and actually cover in this college football playoff game, something they did not do against Notre Dame a season ago.
Very fair point to bring up there. Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, 91% on the Alabama Crimson Tide. And to keep the theme going that Mike referenced a moment ago, my reason for picking Alabama here is also because of the larger story of the season. The fact of the matter is Cincinnati spent most of this year not looking very much like a college football playoff team. They were way closer than they should have been against opponents like Tulane and Tulsa and Navy. This is a team that's really only in the playoff because for the most part, there was really nobody else to put in. They would love to have excluded Cincinnati from this tournament if they could, but there wasn't really another viable option in place. Yes, they won at Notre Dame, but there's a lot more going on here. What I've seen from Cincinnati here this year, although they were playing better football towards the end of the year, what I've seen from Cincinnati, not only they cannot keep it close with Alabama, I don't think they're worthy of the playoff conversation really at all. I think Alabama wins this in blowout fashion. Dari, that puts the flow on the side of Alabama. Typically you do, but do you want to go with the flow and take the Crimson Tide?
No, I don't. I actually like the Bearcats here a lot. I think you guys are discounting some of the quality teams they played, not only Notre Dame, but victory at East Carolina, which is solid on both sides of the ball.
The Rowdy Dowdy, which is also
Rowdy Dowdy.
We should point out.
Yeah, Rowdy Dowdy Ficklin. Since he has a great defense, really great corners, I think they have the rushing attack to control the clock and control the ball in this game. If Ritter has a good game and limits his turnovers, I think Cincy can win this game. So I really like Cincy to cover the points, and I think that they may actually win this game.
Wow, fascinating stuff there. So that's our college football playoff picks. We'll come back to Georgia before we're done. We'll also look at some of the other bowls here coming up in just a bit. I want to remind folks that is Dari Peiro, and this is Go With The Flow presented by R.S. Andrews, our live edition of this show to kind of take a look at everything that's going to be happening for bowl week. And of course, we don't want your bowl season ruined by some sort of plumbing issue or electrical issue around your house, or if your water heater were to go out. My understanding is it's going to be cold again this weekend in Georgia. You think about those heating systems. R.S. Andrews has got you covered for all of that. Simply find them online at rsandrews.com. They'll take care of you for your air conditioning, your heating, your plumbing, and electric needs. On the heating system in particular, you can get your system tuned back up to factory fresh specs. Somebody's told you need a new one. Let the experts from R.S. Andrews tell you how they can get some more life out of that unit. Get you another winter of warm air inside your house with that same heating system. That's what they can do for you. They can get it back to factory fresh specs with that big mega tune-up. So find them online, rsandrews.com. All right, let's turn our attention now to an SEC team playing here today. Shortly after our game is done, this game goes off in Nashville, Music City Bowl, Tennessee, Purdue. Vols are a 6-point favorite here in a bowl game in the first year under Coach Josh Heupel. Mike, what do you think about Tennessee as a 6-point favorite against the Boilermakers?
Yeah, the way this line is swung really scares me. It's gone from Purdue by 2 to Tennessee by 6. That means Vegas takes a bath if Tennessee covers in the Music City, and yet I just can't see I can't see how Purdue would beat Tennessee. Hendon Hooker is playing really well. He ended up the second most efficient passer in the SEC behind Bryce Young. Big, physical, fast, strong-arm quarterback. Most any program would want to have him. But Tennessee is also very good running the ball, and I think that offensive balance probably gives them enough of an edge to cover the 6-point spread as Vegas takes a bath on this one.
Jeff Sintel, how about you? Vols and Boilermakers, the number is 6 in favor of Tennessee.
Especially the way
let's try Connor Riley on this. We'll see if we can come back to Jeff. We may not or not. Let's put Jeff on hold. We don't actually have the capability to do that, but let's just pretend that we did. Put Jeff on hold. We'll come back to him in a minute. Connor, you give your pick. We'll try Jeff here again. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a general principle. If a number is 6 and I think a team is better, I think I'm going to take the team that can possibly win by a touchdown. I think this Tennessee team is going to be motivated to do so. So give me the Vols -6 here.
So that is the story on that. Jeff, let's try you again. Let's see if you Michael, our producer, wants him to text his pick. He's driving. He can't text his picks while he's driving. But nonetheless, he may not be able to speak to us right now. Let's try him one more time. Let's see if he comes through. Jeff, are you with us?
Yeah, guys, I'll make it very short and very sweet. Vols will cover. I don't mind that line by 6. Give me the Volunteers here.
Thank you very much, Jeff. 63% of Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, they agree. They take Tennessee here. I agree with Mike that I don't think it's a particularly easy game to pick, but I agree with Connor that the extra edge here could be motivation. There's literally no trend, no data like that I think speaks to this at all. Now, I do think that Dari brought up a pretty good point earlier, that if you can get some reliable information, not on the percentage of bets necessarily, but the percentage of money that's coming in on certain teams, that might tell you something about which direction you want to go in. Dari's right about that, and you have to consult your own, I guess, ability to sort of decipher that information. But if you can sort of follow this team, that might be the only trend that matters for a game like this. But me kind of flying blind here, I do think Tennessee wants a bowl win for Josh Heupel. We're watching South Carolina a little earlier, at least the last time I was watching it. They were walking the dog with UNC, clearly wanting to get a win and a nice close out to the year one of Shane Beamer. I kind of assume that Tennessee's the same way. We've called Purdue the spoiler makers a lot this year. They have a propensity for pulling upsets, but that's usually for a team ranked inside the top 5, not necessarily a team in Tennessee that's trying to scratch out a winning season or something along those lines. So Tennessee doesn't quite rise to the level being the kind of team that Purdue would typically upset. So give me Tennessee minus the 6 here. Sorry, that puts the flow on the side of Tennessee as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I like Purdue here. I'm going to take the points. I'm going to take a flyer on the Boilermakers. or as you would call the spoiler makers. Even with a lot of their players that are out to injury and opting out to the NFL, I think they're still going to find a way to keep this game extremely close.
All right, very good stuff. Next game now, we move to January 1st for this one, Penn State and Arkansas. Is this the Outback or the Citrus? Citrus?
Outback.
They're in Tampa.
Playing for a blooming onion.
That's right. So Outback Bowl, Penn State and Arkansas. Arkansas, 2.5 point favorite here in this spot. What do you think about Sam Pittman in a bowl, Mike Griffith, 2.5 point favorite against Penn State? What do you think?
Yeah, I would love to tell you all the reasons why I'd pick Arkansas. I realized going first that I give you guys all the information that you need to advance your picks on this game. I think the only reason Connor picked Tennessee is because I did, and I gave him good enough because Connor never picks Tennessee. The more I think about it, he hates Tennessee. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just an observation. So without going into too many details on this particular game, I'm going to take Arkansas. I'll say it's because of Sam Pittman, but it's actually because there's some very, very good and strong and solid information that would make you all want to pick Arkansas if you were to research this game.
Hold on now. You just gave all that, and then you're going to leave me hanging on something I actually want to hear?
I think you've already got it, BA. You can tell us what the spread was 13 years ago and who wins when the temperature's over 70 degrees in Tampa with the research you do each week.
So there you go. Mike Griffith playing it coy. Mike's been around Kirby Smart too much. Mike's clearly got information that people want, but he's not giving it to us.
I'm going to pick Arkansas because I think they have the best chance to win.
It's actually pretty funny. Jeff, what do you think about the Hogs as a 2.5 point favorite down in Tampa?
Yeah, so Mike really didn't like his pick here maybe at the beginning of the season. But then as the practices bore out, he saw that there was a guy maybe buried on the depth chart, maybe a former walk-on pick that he really likes a lot, which gives him the best chance to win in this game. I like Sam Pittman. Chuckles in the theater aside, I like Sam Pittman to win this game just because I just remember, some very stinker games for Penn State. I think it's a momentum pick. You echoed Shane Beamer. You echoed Josh Heupel. I think Arkansas wants to keep things chugging along. And I think playing for Sam Pittman, playing in a bowl game for Arkansas, it just means more. Give me Arkansas to beat the Nittany Lions in this one in coverage.
Connor Riley, Penn State, Arkansas. What do you think?
First of all, I'd like to point out that early on in the season, Mike got off to a very strong start. And if I were taking the picks that he had all season, I'd be further down the standings where he is. But as Michael Carvel reminded us at the top of the show today, I am sitting in pole position here going into our final week. So I'm going to ride with Sam Pittman. I think this Arkansas team wants to be there. There are a couple guys on both sides that have opted out of this game. But I think for the majority of this Arkansas team, it's the first bowl game and God knows how long. They want to be there. They want to win. They want to win a blooming onion for the great people of America. So for one last time this season at -2.5 points, give me a good yes, sir.
It is certainly true that Arkansas has been very strong against the spread in Pittman's 2 years on the job there. Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, they are fans of his and probably fans of Connor's yes, sir rendition as well. 71% do take Arkansas here in this spot. I'm going to zag on this, though. I'd like taking Pittman. I've taken Pittman to great success here over the course of the last couple of years. But I also think that Penn State's been a slightly underrated team here this year, and getting a chance to catch some points with them, I'm going to do that. Dennis, truth is, I have no idea who's opted out of this game, who's playing, who's not playing, who has Omicron, and who doesn't. But Penn State looks like they're on sale for me a little bit here, +2.5. That's enough to give me a little bit of interest in the Nittany Lions, so I'll take them. Flow, though, on the side of Arkansas. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Razorbacks?
No, I don't. This is a pretty interesting matchup between these teams.
Yeah, it's a good game.
And when I look at it, I think Penn State has a better defense. And Arkansas's best wide receiver, Traylon Burks, has opted out to the NFL, and I think that's a big deal in this game because that is kind of a tipping point for me. So I think Penn State wins this game.
There you go. So, Dari, good information on the Burks absence and also a strong take on that there, too. Another game to be played in the state of Florida on New Year's Day. This is the Citrus Bowl as Kentucky hosts Iowa. Wildcats a 3-point favorite. I think one of the big questions on this game is, can Kentucky score enough points in this game to cover the 3? Just given the fact that my assumption is this one's probably about 8-7, 6-5. It's a baseball game between Two teams would love nothing more than to run it 50 times each. At least that's the perception you get. Very, very similar teams squaring off here between Iowa and Kentucky, but the Wildcats do find themselves as a 3-point favorite here. Mike Griffith, what do you think about Kentucky here, given 3 in Orlando?
Well, the big question is actually, does Kentucky turn it over? Because they have the second worst turnover margin in college football. And Iowa plays pretty clean football. I just have not been impressed with Iowa. I did lose earlier this year on a pick when the Penn State quarterback got hurt in that game. But I just go back to Iowa losing to Colorado State at halftime at home, the team Vanderbilt beat. I mean, I know transitive properties don't always apply, but I've had experience with Iowa. I just don't feel strong enough. Now, Iowa and Kentucky have both won 3 straight bowl games. So these are both teams that do value the bowl. But I'm going to go with the Kentucky Wildcats on the momentum of their win over Louisville and the jazzed up video that the quarterback put out that he was coming back for another year. So give me the Wildcats.
So that is Mike on the side of Big Blue Nation. What do you think, Jeff Sintel?
So you guys were talking about data sets. I went to my 9th data set on this game, and frankly, I've been in Orlando the past 2 days, and this feels like schizophrenia for a college football fan. I've seen Iowa State fans, I've seen Clemson fans, I've seen Arkansas fans, I've seen Kentucky fans, I've seen Michigan fans. I haven't seen very many Georgia fans. What I have seen more than anybody else is Iowa fans. That means there's some surge. There's a lot of momentum behind this program. I like into a couple of games we've talked about earlier in our show about these teams will do nothing more than love to run the ball up all game long. Give me Iowa in this one. I like Iowa to win this one going away. I think the Hawkeyes take this one by about 10 to 12 points.
So a couple things here. First of all, Iowa's a big fan base. Like kind of an underrated size for the fan base. They got a lot of alumni, a lot of fans, things like that. Second thing is, you give them a chance to get out of the cold, every single one of them are going to take you up on that offer. They're going to come down to Orlando. They're going to get out of what I would imagine is a pretty chilly Iowa City right now. They're going to be very, very happy to be able to do that. So Jeff Sintel weighs in. Connor Raleigh, what do you think about the number here with Iowa getting 3 from the Wildcats?
Give me Iowa. Both these teams stink. I'll take the underdog in the points because I think this game should probably be a pick-em.
Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers on the side of the SEC here, but not by a wide margin. 58% do take Kentucky. I'm not that interested in this game either, to be completely honest with you, but I do kind of like Kentucky a little bit. 3 feels like kind of a small number here. If you look at the SEC teams in comparison to who they're playing, especially from these SEC Big Ten matchups, I think you can make a case for Kentucky more so than on the other side. I don't have a strong case on this. I think the more fun, bet if you really want to make it is, can these two teams really go under the incredibly low total? That becomes kind of the more fun bet here, more so than the actual side. But to keep it simple, we'll just take the side on this. And if I have to be on a side, to me, Kentucky looks like the right side. That puts the flow on the side of Kentucky. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take Kentucky?
I do. I'm going to take the Wildcats. We're going to crack my second
there you go.
Tasty beverage here.
There you go. I like it. I like it.
I don't know if chasing a low number is fun. I mean, there's no points. That's usually a boring game to watch. But, Iowa's best player, Tyler Goodson, running backs.
Run that
opted.
That's what
it's just like, go. Yeah. But their best player is running back is not playing. He opted out for the draft. I think that kind of hurts him in this game. Kentucky's played well down the stretch to close out their season. So I think they finished their season that way on a high note.
So that's a game played on January 1st. Our next game, not scheduled to take place until January 4th. This thing's like a month from now. But we'll get to that here in a moment. Remind you, it's Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. Dari enjoys himself a beverage today, but most every other day, he's working hard for you. He and his entire team there, handling your air conditioning, your heating, plumbing, electric needs. If your water heater goes out, in many cases, R.S. Andrews can replace it for you the same day. That's the kind of service they give to you because they know the story that they're known for putting smiles on the faces of folks and story after story. That's what they've been doing. They want to do that for you as well. So make sure you check them out online at rsandrews.com for a lot more on that. So how about Kansas State, LSU? LSU is a 3.5-point underdog to Kansas State here. So it's the Texas Bowl. As I said before, it's not until January 4th, but since this is our bowl show, we'll pick the SEC team here in this spot. Unusual to see LA. They've been an underdog a lot this year, of course, but unusual to see LSU as an underdog. They got no coach, they got no players, so that kind of explains part of why. But nonetheless, underdog here to Kansas State. What do you think, Mike Griffith? The number is 3.5.
Can I just pass? I mean, this is. I mean, I don't even know who's going to show up for LSU, and yet Kansas State finished the year with losses to Baylor and Texas. I what's their best win of the year? I mean, West Virginia, maybe. This is tough because I think talking about two teams that really stink. I'm going to go with LSU just because, Jeff Sentell always talks about, he talks about how much he knows about recruiting all the time. And he's going to tell us how many 5 stars and 4 stars. And because Jeff Sentell talks about recruiting all the time and all the talent and the importance of it, I'm going to go with LSU because and Jeff better too, or else he's going to be inconsistent with his logic.
Jeff, the floor is yours then. Consistent here, showing some consistency.
What was that Mike was digging on Brandon about how he knows temperature and when the blooming onion is served to the Arkansas press reporters first versus the home team. That's the stat layers that Brandon goes to. I just think there's a lot of Coach O love to this game. Georgia's, LSU is the type of program that got so many guys stacked up, momentum swinging left and right with Kansas State season. I just think the Ed Orgeron children's book story, it ends with a win. That's the way it's got to end. And that's why I like LSU in this one on January the 4th of all days.
In fairness, though, I know Jeff's been very busy, obviously, with all the recruiting stuff. Orgeron's actually not coaching in this game. But nonetheless, the players that played for – see, this is the problem with bowl season. There's a lot of moving parts here. But Jeff's overall point still matters. The players that played for Orgeron that were influenced by him over the years, they're going to have a chance to certainly go out on a very high note. So point still well taken on that. Connor, what do you think about LSU and Kansas State?
Yeah, LSU is going to be starting a true freshman quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. And if they can't get – and that's only if they're able to get a waiver from the NCAA to preserve his red shirt. If they don't, they're going to start a walk-on. LSU doesn't want to be in Texas on January 4th.
Hey, wait a minute. There's nothing wrong with walk-on quarterbacks. If he gives them the best chance to win, that's who they ought to start.
He's only starting
– Connor. You walked right into that.
He's only starting because there's no one else available. It's not because he gives them the best chance to win, unlike Stetson Bennett. And Stetson Bennett, I would point out, is not a walk-on. We just conveniently glide over this fact.
He does love coaching.
Please under the quarterback thing. Please don't ruin my new year. That's actually good information on Garrett Nussmeier, Connor. I'm glad that you dropped that in there. So who'd you take? Kansas State?
I took Kansas State. LSU don't want to be in Texas on January 4th.
I got to tell you, I feel like they're undervalued here. Anyway, I'll give my pick in a second. First of all, Dog Nation, listeners and viewers, all over this there as well in terms of what they think KSU is going to be able to do. They do take Kansas State to the tune of 61% here. I got to tell you, though, I don't think LSU needs motivation here in the spot like this. LSU just has a little bit of a propensity for doing weird stuff, playing closer than they should have against Alabama. They just a little bit of a penchant for kind of doing things you don't quite expect them to do. Plus, I mean, as Mike pointed out, they are clearly the more talented team, even with all the erosion off the roster, still the more talented team. I think it's kind of fun to be on LSU here on this spot. Of course, for many years, Bill Snyder was coach of Kansas State, another guy that's not coaching in this game either. But, at the time, he was well known for being the coach best against the spread of anybody. Snyder's not walking through that door right now, though. So from that standpoint, I'll take LSU plus the 3.5. It's kind of fun to be on LSU as an underdog here. Kind of a wild, weird bowl game where maybe anything can happen. So I'll take LSU plus the 3.5. The team overall may not want to be there, but the players that will be playing will probably be happy for a time to show out. So I'll take LSU. Flow, though, on the side of Kansas State. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Wildcats?
Yeah, I'm going to have to take Kansas State here just because we don't know who the quarterback is for LSU. Nussmeier is not going to get the waiver approved. If he takes another step, he's going to lose his red shirt. He's not doing that because probably in a few weeks he's going to enter the transfer portal and leave because he already knows he's not going to get any snaps in the future under Brian Kelly. So they're going to be stuck with a pair of freshman walk-ons, and I think that's very bad news for their offense.
Interesting takes all the way around. Let's turn our attention now back to a game that's going to be played in a lot sooner time. It's actually going to take place tonight if you're watching this live. It's in Atlanta, Peach Bowl between Michigan State and Pitt. This game totally marred by opt-outs. Kenneth Walker, the running back for Michigan State, he's not here. Kenny Pickett, the quarterback for Pitt, he's not here either. Michigan State, though, is a 3-point favorite. Two teams that had tremendous seasons. What do you think, Mike Griffith, about Mel Tucker as a 3-point favorite in Atlanta?
Yeah, this is a tough one. You mentioned the cornerstone players for both teams, the Doak Walker Award winner, and I think Pickett was among the 4 or 5 finalists for the Heisman Trophy, if I'm not mistaken. I've kind of gone back and forth on this, covering Pat Narduzzi when he was at Michigan State as the D coordinator, now Pitt's head coach. The line has shifted Michigan State's way, which tells you that that's where the money's being bet. And man, this is tough. It's a toss-up game. Mel Tucker, Narduzzi, probably more Michigan State fans down there. This is exactly the type of game Michigan State loses. So I'm going to go with Pitt. I'm going to go against the flow of the money, and I'm going to go against my alma mater, make a business decision, and go with the Pitt Panthers.
There you go. Jeff Sintel, what do you think about Pitt here as a 3-point underdog in Atlanta against Michigan State?
So this is the pick I'm going to make. This will give me a 1-point edge on Mike for all of our 1-game edge on Mike for all of our picks this week. When you lose a Kenny Pickett here, that is basically the identity of their offense, I think that cripples Pitt. I know you can say the same thing about Michigan State, but Michigan State, unless my information is wrong, will still have its quarterback. Michigan State will still play some gnarly defense under Mel Tucker. And all that Vegas money says a lot to me. So give me Michigan State, lay the points, give me Michigan State to cover in Atlanta.
Connor, what do you think? Michigan State, Pitt, Peach Bowl, Panthers are a 3-point underdog.
Yeah, not only is Pitt without Kenny Pickett in this game, their offensive coordinator, Mark Whipple, is also no longer there. He's now the offensive coordinator in Nebraska. So give me Michigan State in this game. I think Mel Tucker wants to put an exclamation point on this season and really make people forget about the egg that they laid against Ohio State earlier in the year.
Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, they're just simply siding with the guy they like. Mel Tucker, 63% on the side of Sparty here against Pitt. And I really have no idea what to do with this. Connor mentioned an important point here, the fact that Whipple's no longer with the Pitt program. I think he's been a really good offensive coordinator for them. Pitt, kind of against type almost, was actually really fun to watch offensively this season. And I guess the flyer that I'm going to take here is that even without Pickett, without Whipple, there is still some remnant of good offense left here. In a choice of a toss-up game, I would just rather have the better offensive team if I have a chance to. And I'm going back to the Ohio State game for Michigan State a few weeks ago when Mel Tucker clearly established as a goal to take away Ohio State's explosiveness, to not let that be a shootout style game. And they failed miserably in their attempt to do that. And they've had some issues in the secondary, although it's been overall a pretty good year. But they've had some issues in the secondary this season. And I'm going to take a flyer that Pitt, even with the big losses they've had, at least have something left offensively where they face a deficit early, they could come back or score enough points, kind of build the lead that allows them to hold on and cover this number. The point is, I'll take the Panthers plus the 3 here. That puts the flow, though, still on the side of Michigan State. What do you want to do? Do you want to go with the flow and take Sparty?
No. Even with Pitt, it seems like they're in shambles. They have their quarterback, starting running back, starting wide receiver out. Offense coordinator's not there anymore. I'm still going to take Pitt. I think Nick Patty is going to have enough time to sling the ball around and make big plays against that suspect Michigan State secondary.
There you go. Next bowl game to get to, Notre Dame and Oklahoma State. Speaking of new coaching situations, Marcus Freeman in his debut game as coach for Notre Dame. And, of course, Mike Gundy still at the helm for Oklahoma State here. Notre Dame also finds itself as a 2.5-point favorite in the Fiesta Bowl. Is that this is? The Fiesta Bowl,
Correct.
I believe, there in Glendale, Arizona. So, Mike, back to you with Pistol Pete and the Cowboys as a 2.5-point underdog.
Yeah, this is tough. I was originally feeling Oklahoma State in this game. I mean, these are the two teams that kind of had their their hearts broken, being left out of the playoff. I think that ship sailed a long time ago for the Irish when they lost at home to the Bearcats. Oklahoma State just painfully close when you think about that play against Baylor. I think that lingers. I'm flashing back to 2018 when Georgia had a little bit of a hangover from being left out of the college football playoff and really got handled on the offensive line. All these offensive linemen from Georgia we celebrate, really got their tails kicked by Texas that night. Just didn't show up really at the line of scrimmage. Notre Dame's got big game experience. They've got a new coach. They've got energy. And so I'm going to take the Irish in this one.
What do you think, Jeff Sintel, about the Irish and the Cowboys?
Yeah, guys. So tongue in cheek here. I got an email from a lawyer that represents a member of the Oklahoma State coaching staff. They gave me the inside intel on this game. I'm going to go, after much consternation, thinking about this, going back and forth. I like the Marcus Freeman era. I like what they're doing there. Surely there's some opt-outs. But I think Marcus Freeman is going to start a really long coaching success story here. And I think he gets his first win in a very transition game for the Irish. I think they beat the brakes off Oklahoma State and look very good doing so.
There you go. Connor Riley, what do you think?
Yeah, I like Notre Dame here. I think they're going to come out motivated. They want to show that Marcus Freeman was the right guy for this job and that Brian Kelly sort of left them in a bad spot. So give me a motivated Notre Dame team to win their first ever BCS or college football playoff game. They are 0-7 in those such games since 1998.
That's certainly a very good number from Connor Riley. Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers on the side of Oklahoma State. They simply don't like Notre Dame. 71% on the side of the Cowboys here. And this is another game on which I'm conflicted, but not because I can't make a case for either team, but because I can actually make a fairly strong case, I think, for either side. I agree with the idea of Marcus Freeman getting off to a good start from him. I was totally betrayed by Oklahoma State the last time I picked them. I really rode them hard in the game against Baylor, the Big 12 title game, and they just let me down on that all the way around. But nonetheless, I'm going to go back to Oklahoma State here. This is a team that's been actually very strong against the spread all year long, and the kind of game that I think that you can make a case for the Cowboys here. So I'll take them in this situation. That puts the flow, I think, still on the side of Notre Dame, though. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take Notre Dame?
I'm going with the flow. I think Notre Dame is going to be fired up for this game with Freeman as their coach. Freemania. I expect them to win and cover. I think it's going to be a really good game because Mike Gundy's his bowl record is, I think he's only lost once. So he's very good at getting these things prepared. But I think this is going to be a tight finish down to the last drive of the game. But Notre Dame's going to come out ahead in this one.
Two more bowl games to pick, and we'll turn our attention back to Georgia to close things out. We head out to the granddaddy of them all, Pasadena, California, in the Rose Bowl. A game for the first time has proven not to be immune from the kind of opt-outs that have plagued so much of the rest of the college football postseason conversation, especially on the Ohio State side, where key wide receivers and big names left and right have been announcing their intentions to not play in the game, which is strange that instead of opting out at the beginning of the month, opting out towards the end right before the bowl game, it seems to be a little bit odd to me. But nonetheless, there's been a lot of that for Ohio State as of late. This is not anywhere close to the same team that was a playoff contender throughout the year. Utah, on the other hand, probably finished the season as the hottest team in the country. Certainly impressive with the way they ran through Oregon in blowout fashion twice towards the end of the year. Of course, Oregon got blown out again last night, so maybe that makes it slightly less impressive. But no one's really playing much better football than what Utah has played over the course of the final couple of weeks, the last time we saw them out there. But even with all the opt-outs, they still find themselves as a 4.5-point underdog against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. So what do you think, Mike, about Ohio State and Utah out in Pasadena?
Wow. As much as I want to pick Utah based on the late momentum, earlier in the show, you said we got to look at what teams have done over 13 games.
You do.
And so I need to reflect back to the fact that Utah lost to Oregon State. Utah lost to San Diego State. I don't think it's so shameful that they lost to BYU because that's a rivalry game. But and truthfully, watching Oregon last night, it just, I got suckered in by those uniforms and missed on those picks a few times this year. And I like Utah's uniforms, and their helmets are really cool for this game with the rose through it. But even though Ohio State's not interested in this game with the key opt-outs, I'm going to go down the Jeff Sentell road again, minus the sappy story, and I'm going to go with the Buckeyes to win and cover.
There you go. Mike on the side of Ohio State. Jeff, how about you? Ohio State as a 4.5-point favorite.
Yeah, scary team. Utah's definitely a scary team. I look for this one to be a struggle bus win for Ohio State. Yeah, Ohio State's got some talent that's checked out and opted out, receiver core. They still got some great running backs. They still stacked up the receivers over the last few years. I think this will be an Ohio State victory, but it will be a struggle bus victory. I'm thinking 3 points, 1 point, 2 points, 3 points inside that spread. That's why I like Ohio State to win, but I like the points here with Utah in Pasadena. Good game. I think this is going to be an underrated, very good game of the bowl holiday weekend.
Connor Raleigh, how about you? A lot of Ohio State love right now. You want to join in on that?
I really, really want to pick Utah here. I think this game means a lot to this program. They've played really well. This is a physical team. This is not the team that you want to be half-heartedly playing. But even with no Chris Olave and no Garrett Wilson, I mean, Ohio State can still turn to Jackson Smith-Nwaba, who was a 5-star wide receiver, Julian Fleming, who was the number 1 receiver in his class, Emeka Ugba, who is the number 1 wide receiver in his class, along with quarterback C.J. Stroud, freshman running back Travion Henderson. Ohio State's going to find a way to win this game. They have enough talent to do so. Give me Ohio State here minus 4.5.
81%, which is actually a pretty high number, but 81% of Dog Nation Daily listeners and viewers agree, and I agree as well. Ohio State just has better players. I don't care how many opt-outs they have. I think that the line makers are telling you everything you need to know with the spread. I like Ohio State a lot. This is actually, to me, one of the safer picks of the bowl time here. So I'll be heavy on Ohio State here as well. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Buckeyes?
Absolutely. Even though Utah is going to be fired up for this game, Ohio State's they just got too much talent, too much explosion. It's going to be tough for Utah to keep pace.
Final bowl game we'll pick before we get back to Georgia, Michigan to close things out. It is the Sugar Bowl. It is Baylor and Ole Miss. Of course, Baylor back in the Sugar Bowl again after playing Georgia in this spot at the end of the 2019 season, and Ole Miss back in this spot after being here most recently at the end of the 2014 or 2015 season when they were here with previous coach Hugh Freeze. But a pretty fun matchup for a defensive-minded coach in Dave Aranda, obviously an offensive mastermind in Lane Kiffin. But it's Ole Miss Baylor in the Sugar Bowl, and the Rebels are a 1.5 favorite. What do you think about this one, Mike Griffith?
Yeah, this is an interesting game because it's Dave Aranda is a guy that I've got a lot of respect for, and I had the courage to pick against Oklahoma. Some people didn't have the courage to pick him, even though they talked him up all year. They kind of backed out at the last minute and didn't pick him in that game, Connor Riley. But in this game with Matt Corral playing in the game with the legacy of Archie Manning and the Manning family and the ties to Ole Miss, I think this game means a lot to Ole Miss. It doesn't take a lot to get Ole Miss fans excited. But New Orleans is certainly an area where Ole Miss fans will get excited. Matt Corral is playing. Lane Kiffin likes cities like New Orleans. And it's going to be a happy week for Ole Miss. So I'm going to take the wild and crazy Rebels over the calculated, great coaching, but considerably less talent of the Baylor Bears. So give me Ole Miss.
Jeff Sindell, how about for you? Sugar Bowl between Baylor and Ole Miss. Ole Miss 1.5 point favorite.
Help me out here, friends. I've been busy covering all these Texas A&M signees in the Under Armour game this week. Matt Corral has not opted out. Yes, he's still in the game, correct?
Matt Corral is playing in this game.
And then Lane Kiffin is not yet the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? Yes.
That is awesome.
That's fair. Yes.
So, listen to the depth of knowledge everybody has about their sports entertainment wagering. I've got one. I try never to bet a game where the line is 1.5 points because that's just really stinking close. But when I do it on a Dog Nation streaming platform with 3 or 4 of my best friends while driving 200 miles to Miami. And because of those special corollaries are in effect, I like Matt Corral to really just a terrific runner, all-around player. I think Matt Corral is going to have a signature drop the mic game that's going to make Mel Kiper's hair stand up and make him touting him as a top 15 overall pick in the next NFL draft. Give me the Rebels. I know the line's 1.5. I think the Rebels will win this one going away, maybe by like one score.
So it sounds like Jeff says, hey, maybe it's a money line type pick more so than a point spread type pick, which, by the way, also coincides with another thing that you see a lot during bowl season, which is a little bit of a connection between if you like an underdog, you might also like them to win, because in bowl games, it seems like it happens a little bit more frequently that not only does an underdog cover, but when an underdog does cover, it also wins outright. You should do your own research, of course, but
whoa. Let's ease up there.
You know what I mean when I say that. The point is, you should truly look into that, because there is a little bit of a connection between underdogs winning outright when they do cover during bowl season. So, Connor, with all that said, Ole Miss and Baylor, what do you think?
Yeah, BA, on your show, you're a better man than I am. You like to say you don't punch down, but I hear Mike taking shots at me, and I can't really hear them because he's so far down the standings from where I am that, it's just something getting lost there in the gap in between. I like Ole Miss in this game. Baylor's got some quarterback questions. It sounds like Jerry Bohannon might be able to play for them, but the guy that started their game against Oklahoma State is not going to play in this game. So there's some questions that they have there. And look, Lane Kiffin off a long break. You saw what he did to Louisville to open the season. I think he's going to cook some things up in this game. If Baylor's not disciplined, I think Ole Miss is going to be able to take advantage of that with Matt Corral out there for his last game for Ole Miss. I think they're going to want to send him out with a win. Give me the Rebels here.
So, Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers, 68% on the side of Ole Miss. You're taking the SEC on this. I'm actually going to take Baylor for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think Ole Miss already won its Super Bowl. I think that Kiffin sandbag going into the Egg Bowl, pretending like the game didn't matter to him, and ultimately he kind of goes out there and really got a big win for Ole Miss there in that spot. I think Kiffin's probably a little dejected that his name didn't really show up on any of the true, rumor mills when it got serious about big programs making a big hire. Kiffin's name was really nowhere to be found. I'm guessing he's probably a little dejected by that. Plus, the other thing is, I'm not quite so sure Dave Aranda just isn't a better coach all the way around anyway. So that's enough for me to be on the side of the Baylor Bears here right now. Flow, though, on the side of Ole Miss. Dar, you want to go with the flow and take the Rebels? Hotty toddy.
No, I like Baylor here. It's one of my stronger plays of the week. It's going to be a great game to watch. I think Dave Aranda is going to have a game plan to control the clock in this game and try to shorten that window. I think he's going to pound the running game for 200-plus yards against the Rebels.
All right, so that is the story with all the other bowls. As promised, come back now to Georgia and Michigan, and it is a tiny, minuscule total for this game, 45.5 for Georgia, Michigan. That is a very, very interesting total all the way around. Mike, over under the 45.5. What do you think?
Yeah, I've been a sucker for this bet all year. I guess I might as well be consistent and take the over.
There you go. Jeff Sintel, what do you think?
Much consternation on this one. Much consternation. But I'm going to go under. I'm taking the under. Yes, this is going to be some Big Ten old-time Earl Bruce, Woody Hayes type football. But, Bo Schmellenberger would be proud. I think this one's going to go under, fellas.
There you go. Connor Riley, split decision amongst the scribes right now. How about for you?
Under in Kirby Smart's last 17 games against top 25 ranked teams, I believe. 13 of those games have gone under. I know the Alabama game went over there, and I know BA is going to tell you, you probably need to score 30 points if you're Georgia to win in this game. Yeah. I still like the under here. I struggle to see how Michigan's going to score, and I think Michigan's defense is good enough to limit Georgia. And Georgia, to me, has to show that they can score consistently enough in the red zone. And if they're going to kick a lot of field goals, that's going to help the under in this situation.
74% of Dog Nation daily listeners and viewers agree with Connor. They take the under, and Connor's also right to kind of zero in on my thought process on this, that, I've actually gotten really successful picking unders for Georgia a lot this season. But in this particular case, I think for Georgia to win this game the way that I think it's going to, I think this is probably kind of heading towards an over type situation where Georgia does need to score 30. I think if Georgia's in the 20s, that's a game you're really in the risk of losing. So you get to 30, you try to find a way to hold Michigan somewhere in that 21 type number. And that's a game that goes over the 45.5. I see this game about 30-21, something along those lines. So I do like the over in this spot. Flow, though, on the side of the under. Dari, for the final pick of the year on Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews, you want to take the under, you want to go with the flow?
I'm taking the under. I think both teams are going to try to run the ball, control the clock. They're both fine with playing field position. I think you're going to see a lot of that. Maybe a few shots downfield, but I think it's going to be pretty conservative by both teams for a good part of this game.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we, with the race as tight as it is the top between Connor Riley and Dari Payro, let's follow this week's with the bowl action. My guess is I'm probably not closing that gap right now. I know Mike's not, but I'm kidding. I don't even know if Mike's listening, but the point is the race is as tight enough at the top as it is between Connor and Dari. Why don't we plan on having a little recap for Go With The Flow back as a part of the R.S. Andrews cool down, an upcoming edition of Dog Nation Daily? Let's find out if Dari does overtake Connor. Let's find out if Connor maintains, holds on to his lead. We'll bring both guys back on live. We'll do that again very soon there on Go With The Flow. On the R.S. Andrews cool down as part of Dog Nation Daily. Dari, how does that sound to you?
Sounds good. Hopefully by then we'll just be recapping, and I got such a wide margin lead on Connor. It's like irrelevant.
There you go. That sounds pretty good. And Connor, I know you're probably up for that there as well.
Hey, we're just trying to grind out a winning week here. We're not worried about what Dari's doing, what Mike is doing, obviously what Jeff is not doing since he's all the way down the standings down there. We just focus on what we do well. We're going to try and scratch out another winning week here and end the season on a strong note.
I wish all of you success trying to do the same thing with your own picks. Best of luck. Of course, don't forget to check out BetUS.com for more spread data. The spreads that we use on this show come from BetUS. You can also get a big sign-up deposit bonus when you use the promo code DN125 there at BetUS.com. And truly, Dari is good at a lot more than just picking football games. He's also great, he and his entire team, at taking care of you for your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, electric needs. So make sure you turn to them online at rsandrews.com. R.S. Andrews truly can make you smile today. And when you check them out, you'll find that out for yourself. Thanks for all of you for being here for another season's worth of picks as a part of Go With The Flow presented by R.S. Andrews. Most importantly, hope you enjoyed Georgia, Michigan on Friday, and we will see you back here again in the very near future. Have a great weekend, everybody.